We'll shift now to face masks because there is new research around that, and we'll get into it. But Dr. Furness, what do you think we've learned in the past year about mask use, especially during flu season? What part about that do you think will have maybe a more lasting effect on how we use them, even whenever this is all over, post-pandemic?
Masks represent one area where we have perhaps learned the most. And I hope we continue to learn and understand the relationship between mask use and respiratory disease. There are parts of the world, I think about Asia in particular, where culturally speaking, wearing a mask is not that unusual, is not that revolutionary. In Taiwan, for example, where they're very open to wearing masks and actually where a lot of the world's mask production takes place, they did very well with COVID. They didn't actually have to think about it and talk to the experts and disagree and spend time coming to that. Whereas in the West, that's what we did. All of us, all the experts said mask wearing initially doesn't make sense because the conventional wisdom, which is still valid, says the mask is actually not protective to you. And we kind of stopped there. And so I think we all had a really humbling moment to take a step back and say, wait a minute, we've simply been asking the wrong question. The question really ought to be is not does the mask protect you, but what is the role of the mask in interrupting or disrupting transmission? And when you ask that question, all of a sudden, any mask, it seems, if it covers your mouth and your nose, even if it doesn't fit well, even if it's not made out of ideal materials, seems to be having a very positive effect in disrupting transmission. The mental model I use is a tipping point. So imagine that when you go out onto the subway or to work or when your kids go to school, they almost get infected. Imagine they almost get infected every day. And that mask wearing by people around them disrupts those aerosols, disrupts what's airborne, basically reduces it to the point that it's actually no longer quite dangerous. That, I think, is a really good way to understand the role that masks make. And so the idea that we need to be really obsessed about, well, they need to fit, they need to seal, they need to be a certain number of layers, they need to be made out of certain materials. Well, those are all relevant, but so far they haven't actually been nearly as important or significant as the act of actually having something interrupting that exhalation, that blunts the projection of droplets, that simply reduces or interferes with the production of aerosols. And I think that's been one of the pieces of really good news here is that it's a pretty simple intervention. It's a nuisance. But it's, if you had to choose between masks and lockdowns, I think you would say masks are pretty innocuous as far as interventions go. So we have learned a ton, just a ton. Recently, I watched a 1918 newsreel that was, well, not a newsreel so much as it was an educational film on how to protect yourself from Spanish flu. And they're talking about mask use. And what's funny about that is they felt that masks protect you, that back then, actually, they didn't have a strong sense of what viruses really were. They thought they were liquids. And so their mental model was the mask will prevent the virus from entering your body. And masks do provide a little bit of protection that way. That's not the thing that should make you feel safe, though. You should feel safe when other people are wearing masks. Now, would better masks be better? Would that limit transmission? We actually don't know. Intuitively, yes. But again, if we think about it as tipping points where people are almost getting infected and masks are interrupting that, it's not clear that being really obsessed with mask design and materials is going to make a huge difference. We should be doing that research. We should be learning. The one thing we have now that we didn't 100 years ago is a lot of scientific capacity to test different materials, to test different designs, to come up with a better mask. We're not done with respiratory disease. Even if COVID goes away completely, which I doubt, we're still going to have influenza. We're still going to have other emerging diseases. We're going to have more pandemics. And so I think next time around, we will actually really have a great science of masks and really how they work and really what's ideal about them. So I guess that's a way of saying I don't think we need to be horribly concerned about mask design right now. But I think everything we learn about that in order to make better ones and really just better understand exactly what their role is, that's going to benefit all of us.